Hello everyone, my name is Atla Shonov and today I'm going to talk about empiricism in different elements of Scrum. Empiricism itself is a very simple concept. It asserts that knowledge comes from experience. One of my favorite examples about empiricism is the way we learn as humans. Thus, when I was a child, my mom told me many times not to touch the oven. Well, I didn't listen to her until I touched it when she was cooking. I burned my hand. Not too bad, but it was enough to remember not to touch it again. It was a very empirical process. I knew the theory, my mom told me many times not to touch it, but I learned from my experience. When I grew up, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. I tried different jobs. I was a recruiter, I was a business analyst, I was a project manager. I experienced many different professions until I became a Scrum Master and understood that this is what I like doing. It was a very empirical process. I had to do the job in order to understand if I like it or not. But let's come back to the theory. If we would like to implement empirical process in practice, we need to have three elements or pillars of empiricism, which are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency means that we all know what is going on. Inspection allows us to check our work on a regular basis and see how we're doing, while with adaptation we can change technical decisions and minimize possible deviations from our course. Since these three pillars uphold implementation of empiricism and Scrum is founded on empirical process control theory, I would like to further review how each element of Scrum relates to transparency, inspection, and adaptation. The main elements in Scrum are roles, events, and artifacts. Well, let's start with events. All 5 events, which are sprint, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective, they serve inspection, adaptation, and transparency. Moreover, 4 of them are formal opportunities for inspection and adaptation. In sprint planning, we inspect product backlog and adapt our sprint goal, sprint backlog, and sprint plan or forecast. Having this event brings transparency to everyone on a team, allowing to see what the team is going to work on in a sprint and the outcomes or goals they're trying to achieve. In daily Scrum, we inspect the progress towards our sprint goal and we adapt sprint backlog and daily plan. This is a very empirical process because we discuss the work we completed and how this work affects our possibility to achieve the sprint goal. It brings transparency to everyone on a team. That is why many people who are not a part of a Scrum team like to observe daily Scrum. A sprint review, we inspect product increment, product backlog, market, budget, and we adapt our product backlog. That is an incredible event to bring transparency to your stakeholders. Finally, in sprint retrospective, we inspect the team and collaboration, technology and engineering, definition of done, and we adapt our actionable improvements. In this event, we bring transparency to everyone on the team regarding the way we operate as a Scrum team. There is an interesting example of empiricism and Scrum events. When I was working as a Scrum Master with one of the Scrum teams, I noticed that they didn't receive any feedback in sprint reviews. Their team was very technical and they did like 99% of the back-end work. In sprint reviews, stakeholders simply couldn't understand what the team was working on. What the team did, they created a diagram showing elements of the system and explaining what they're working on now and how each created element or increment helps. That was a game changer. We received a lot of feedback simply because the team made their work transparent and understood to the stakeholders. The feedback allowed us to focus on the elements we didn't even think that were important at that time. The next element of Scrum I'm going to talk about is roles. There are three roles: Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Development Team. In Scrum, every role has clear accountabilities, what brings a lot of transparency regarding the expectations to people fulfilling those roles. Thus, we are being transparent about product owners' accountability to manage product backlog and to represent stakeholders. We agree that development team creates product increment and collaborates with the product owner in order to maximize the value. We know that Scrum Master ensures that the Scrum team is functional and productive. In each of these roles, we inspect how we are working and we adapt it in order to bring value to the team and to our stakeholders. This inspection and adaptation occurs non-stop. It can be seen in every interactions we have. But this inspection and adaptation is possible only because we have a clear accountabilities that are visible and well understood by everyone on a team. I've been working with a team where product owner didn't respect the role and completely disagreed with its accountabilities. Basically, this person didn't participate in backlog refinements, cancel sprint reviews, or didn't invite the development team to the event, and communicated all the requirements to the team just through stories in Jira. There was no transparency, and development team really struggled to understand the work they needed to complete. I wouldn't surprise you if I say that this team got a new product owner. A new product owner brought a lot of transparency regarding the work the development team needed to complete. That significantly improved team's involvement, interactions, and even productivity. The third element I'm going to talk about today is artifacts. There are three artifacts in Scrum: product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. Each of these artifacts provide transparent information. Product backlog holds the requirements for the product. Sprint backlog holds all the work for the sprint goal, and increment is basically a work in addition to the product or potential releasable work. As I said earlier, we inspect and adapt these artifacts on a regular basis. Thus, we inspect product backlog in sprint planning and sprint review, and we adapt it in sprint review. We adapt our sprint backlog in sprint planning and daily Scrum, and finally, we inspect and adapt our increment in sprint reviews. One of the team I worked with really struggled to achieve their sprint goals for multiple sprints in a row. There were many different reasons, but the main reason was the lack of transparency of their sprint backlog. Scrum team worked on many different initiatives and not always paid attention to their PBIs and which PBI relates to their sprint goal and which are not. Their Scrum board looked just like a pile of cards. What they did, they created swim lanes on their physical board where one swim lane was dedicated only to a sprint goal, while others could change. Those were CI swim lanes, technical swim lanes, incident swim lanes, etc. That allowed the team to see the real state of their sprint backlog and inspect and adapt it on a regular basis. It also provided a lot of transparency to product owner and to the development team to see the progress towards sprint goal. That transparency allowed them to react faster and focus on a sprint goal better. Eventually, the team was able to achieve their sprint goal more often. As you could see, there is empiricism in every element of Scrum. We were able to see how transparency, inspection, and adaptation were incorporated in roles, events, and artifacts of Scrum framework. That truly confirms that Scrum is founded on empiricism. Thank you and have a great day.